what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Vanland. This week we're going to answer a question that we get a lot here, which is it worth it to get a front bumper and winch on your Sprinter van? We're going to go over the features of the bumper, some of the positives and negatives that we talk about with our clients, also the features of the specific winch that we chose here, and some of the best practices that you'll want to employ when using a winch. And then finally, we'll answer the question, is this something that you should be adding to your van if you're going to either be taking it off-road or possibly just even using it around town? Do you really need this setup? Let's get started and take a look at the bumper and winch setup that we just put on this van. For this setup, we chose the California-tuned Sprinter front bumper with the Warn Evo 12 winch with the synthetic cable on it. So this is a really great setup. It gives you basically a full steel bumper that's going to protect the front end of your vehicle. Also integrated is the winch mounting platform, a front receiver hitch so you can mount some basic lightweight gear onto the front via the receiver hitch, 2 points of attachment for your D-ring shackles, and then finally a place to mount some lights up on the top, which is pretty common to do with this as well. So in this one package, you're getting a bunch of features on the front end. So let's look at the pros and cons of putting one of these setups on your van. The number one is if you get stuck, you'll want to have a winch with you. It helps in so many different circumstances. If you don't have it, you're not going to be able to get out of some of the trouble you get yourself into, as we found out recently. And if you do have it, you're going to be able to get out more than likely. Another benefit of this is that it's an actual bumper. So if you do get into a fender bender or you run over a branch on a road, this is going to protect the front end. It's a full steel bumper and it connects back to the frame. For that respect, it is really nice to have a bumper no matter what. One of the other benefits, this gives you a place to mount other things, whether it be in the hitch mount or mounted to the top bar like your lights, just an attachment point for different gear on the front of the van. And the final benefit is that it really looks great. This gives vans kind of an aggressive style. You can tell when you see one of these bumper and winch setups that this is a person who likes to get off-road a little bit, and that just makes it look really cool. The downsides, of course, the biggest downside would be the cost associated with it. It's not cheap to get this full setup installed on the van. I think it's going to run somewhere north of $3,000 to $4,000 in parts to get everything, if you're including the lights, the winch, and the bumper, and then there's installation on top of that. The other downside would be the weight. As you're doing a build out of a van, it is important to be weight conscious. You don't want to be over your vehicle's weight rating. We did some quick measurements on this, and we're looking at about 170 pounds of gear with the winch and the bumper on this. The winch is around 73 pounds and the bumper is 97 pounds. So together 170 pounds on the front end. I would say this is a good place to put a little bit of extra weight as opposed to adding more weight to the back of the van, which is usually the heavier part in most build outs. So the weight comes at a good spot, but again, it's weight, and you need to always be conscious of how much weight you're adding to it. I want to now give you guys a little bit more information about the winch we chose. This is the Warn Evo 12S winch. It's a 12,000 pound winch, and it seems to be a really good choice for Sprinter vans. It fits perfectly into this front bumper. The other question that we get a lot is whether people should be using a steel cable or a synthetic rope on their winch. These days, it's trending a lot more towards using synthetic ropes. They tend to be a little bit more forgiving, especially in terms of safety. They're definitely a safer rope to use. They are much lighter than a steel cable. And just in general, the winch, it doesn't get used that much, so you really want to save on weight where you can. The downsides of the synthetic cable versus the steel is that the steel is actually a little bit tougher if you're using this around rocks or branches somewhere out in the desert or in the mountains, and it happens to be rubbing on different features of the landscape, the steel cable is actually going to hold up better to that. The synthetic ropes tend to potentially get some dirt in them. They will scratch on rocks and probably need to be changed a little bit more often than you would with the steel cable. One of the other downsides, the synthetic rope can freeze up. If it's wet and you've been driving through the rain and then it freezes or it gets snowed on, it can actually freeze into a block, which the steel cables tend not to do. So if that's a concern, then you might want to go with a steel cable, but generally the synthetic rope is what most people are choosing these days. Here are a few best practices for when you are using your winch to do recovery. First of all, you want to leave the vehicle running while you're using your winch. They do draw a lot of power, especially when they're under load, so make sure you have the vehicle running so that you don't drain your battery. Secondly, when you're using the winch, if it's under load, you want to give it breaks. So 30 seconds on or 30 seconds off is a general rule of thumb. You just want to make sure that the winch is not overheating, and that also during those 30-second breaks you can actually kind of check around to see if anything's changed, if there's any obstacles, or tell people to get out of the way, whatever you need to do. The next tip would be, if you do strap to a tree to pull yourself out, make sure that you're using an actual strap that you carry along. The cables on these, especially the steel ones, can cut into a tree, and even though you've recovered yourself, you don't want to kill a tree in the process, so make sure you bring a strap and use one around a tree. Next tip, when you do unspool your winch, if you use it to get yourself out of a predicament, then you do want to make sure that at some point you are respooling your winch cable properly. It is really important, and it's good to get in the habit of doing it every time you unspool it. Otherwise you can run into problems with slippage, or the cable or the rope not respooling properly, getting pinched, crushed. Lots of bad things can happen when it's not done in a tidy way. And the final tip is, take an off-road recovery course if you can, with your vehicle and the equipment on it. These are really important in order to do things safely when you are in trouble. You can imagine if your vehicle is starting to slide down a hill and you're trying to winch it out, there are a lot of things that you need to know that wouldn't normally be obvious about how to recover a vehicle. So again, this is a little bit too much for us to get into this video, and also I'm actually not an expert on that. I want to learn more myself about how to operate winches properly, how to recover yourself, and how to recover others as well. The final question, is this an investment that you should make on your van? I would say, whether you think you're going to use a winch or not, you're going to want one at some point. If it's not to save you, then it will be to help somebody else. Recently, we just got stuck, and we'll actually put a link to the entire video that you can watch in the description below. We were out just doing some basic testing on the suspension, and we ended up getting stuck in the mud. Without this equipment, we would have definitely had to get a tow truck. And as we were there, just kind of figuring out what we were going to do after we got stuck, there were at least 3 other people who stopped their cars and said, "Do you need help? You know, what's the plan?" So when you have a winch, it's not always about saving yourself. Sometimes you will see someone in distress that you could easily help, and it's just a good opportunity to connect with other people, use some of your gear, and make a friend. So overall, yes, absolutely. In terms of the investment that you make to get this equipment on the van will pay itself back, certainly over the life of the van, either in helping yourself or helping someone else. We're big fans. This is a really cool piece of equipment that we do here at Vanland, and you can also find all these products on our website. If you have any questions specifically about the gear, let us know. If you have any input about, hey, this is when I've used my winch, situations that you got stuck in that you'd like to share with us, please do leave a comment below. All right, everybody, that's it. Thanks for joining us again at Vanland. We just wanted to show you this cool setup that we just did. We get a lot of questions about these, so we wanted to reach out to you guys with a video and hopefully answer some of those. So that's it for this week. We will see you guys again next time.